Engage. Disrupt. Adapt. Repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome, listeners, episode 121, and we've had a really great month. We were talking about ownership. We had a chance to talk with Truman Hudson and Erin Patton, both with some connections down in the Detroit area. Erin talked more about a board's role and her role in terms of connecting to the marketplace. And then Dr. Hudson really hammered that point home and talked a little bit more about a leader's responsibility in running a nonprofit like a business.
Yeah, I think that as we look at the month, and we've had some incredible opportunities this month to talk to some outstanding people, I think the real theme, and I want to spend a few minutes and really kind of get people's attention focused on this, is the importance of step 2 in the reinvention process, which is ownership. Over and over and over, the opportunity for someone to make a difference, no matter where they are in their organization or at the board level, is the opportunity to own and help that entity achieve the success that they deserve. It is in too short a supply, Jodi. We need more individuals who will make themselves accountable and own their piece of whatever turf they need to help the entity achieve the success it needs to.
Yeah, the interesting paradox with ownership is that for some, it seems too risky. Because in owning, you put your name on the line, right? It's like John Hancock, and he writes it really big, and he says, well, this is either going to work out really well for me or we're all going to hang for it.
Yes.
But it's a risk, and you sign up, and so you are personally accountable. But what's interesting is that in taking that leap and putting your name on the line, you make sure you don't fail. Failure is more certain when no one owns. And failure is the one thing we're scared of, and so we don't own. But in putting your name on the line and saying, I'm going to make sure that I personally ensure that we reach this goal, the likelihood of failure drops significantly. So the way to ensure that the one thing you're most scared of doesn't happen is by putting your name on the line.
Exactly. And Jodi, I think you and I would both agree that one of the ways that we as individuals can truly make a difference is to own our work. Mm-hmm. And own the contribution to the total that makes the total succeed. And when we look for emerging leaders, one of the key characteristics that we look for are those individuals that show the capacity to be able to own. So if you're an entrepreneur, for example, and this is kind of next month, we're going to focus on entrepreneurs. But if, as an entrepreneur, not only can you own whatever new idea or service or product you're bringing to the marketplace, but you can own the success to get it there, which means you're willing to learn whatever it takes to move that to the next level, right? You may not know what that is, but in owning that, it means you're willing to learn and do whatever it takes on the journey of success. And what that doesn't mean is to say, well, that's not my job, or that's not my space, or I don't do this, or I don't do that, or I'm this, or I'm that. It completely reverses all of that and says simply, I have to accept the fact that if I'm going to be a leader, even if it doesn't appear that it's my space, I have to help own that in a way in order to ensure the success that everybody needs to have for this project.
Well, and in owning it, you are able to rewrite the goal as you go along. So you're no longer held hostage to, something that you put on paper 3 months ago at a board meeting and said, yeah, that sounds good. Let's try to do that. When you really dive in and you start working towards it, you might realize that the idea was good, but the actual outcome needs to shift or pivot, as Dr. Truman was talking about. And because you're owning it, you get to rewrite that in the midst of it versus being subject to it at the end when it doesn't go the way you thought.
Have you enjoyed our Pure Reinvention podcast? Are you ready to begin your own Pure Reinvention journey? Join our next Starters Experience May 4 through 5 and May 24 through 25 in Detroit. Learn the 5 fundamentals in an engaging and interactive way. Contact us at purereinvention.com today.
So, Ms. Schaefer, let's use you as an example.
Okay, let's use me.
You have been both an employee
Yep,
and now you are a business owner. They're different roles.
absolutely.
But talk for a minute about the freedom that you are experiencing as a result of being an owner or owning,
Yeah.
and how that attitude frees you to achieve the next level of success as opposed to being in the employee mentality and being held hostage.
Yeah, when you're an employee, it's not that I didn't have ownership over my work. In other words, I took pride in what I did, and my leadership team looked to me to bring ideas to the table. I had support most of the time to invest some of those. So it wasn't totally oppressive, but certainly there were confines that I was working within that I didn't have control over. You know, I wasn't the one that determined the budget. I wasn't the one that determined whether or not we were going to talk about this today,
Right.
you know, and so you were somewhat limited in what you could do. As a business owner, there's certainly more risk, but I'll tell you what, it is far surpassed by the excitement and the unlimited possibilities of what your day could bring. And even in, you know, our nonprofit sector, so these folks aren't necessarily business owners, but they're behaving as such because they see and they get energized by the excitement of taking this organization somewhere where it's never been before. And everyone kind of being excited to just be on that ride with them. And so I have a team of people that work with me, and it is constantly this conversation of, what could we do next? Or, hey, I heard about this opportunity. Anyone have an interest in trying that? And so really taking down those barriers and some of that structure and picking your head up once in a while and looking around. And that's what ownership really is. It's not just owning within the confines of what somebody has prescribed to you, but it's picking your head up, charting your own course. And even if the end result is something different than what you ever thought it would be when you started, it's still a success because you learned a lot along the way and you pushed the organization forward as a result of it.
And you followed where the opportunity led you
Absolutely.
as opposed to being in the opposite role. So let me ask you this. Not all of us can be business owners, and that's okay. But if I'm an employee, and that's kind of going to be my place in life, how do I look for that organization or that supervisor or that chief executive officer that's going to allow me to own my work and that's going to allow me to make a difference? How do I find that individual?
You have a little more control when you're the one who's on the selection committee, but there are times when you are a staff member and you're not on the selection committee, and this person is going to get picked and put in that role, and you sort of have to live with it. One of the things that I think is really helpful is making sure that your contributions and your ideas and your energy and enthusiasm for the organization and the mission of the organization reaches the ears of many people, because even though you may not be on the selection committee, you do have the ability to influence the folks that will ultimately make that decision.
So number one, think wide, not narrow.
Absolutely. You know, and make sure that when that new individual comes into their role, that you approach them in a way that is collaborative. And I'm so excited you're here, and I want to hear more about your thoughts for where this organization can go. And I would love to share with you some of my thoughts as somebody that has some institutional knowledge. And you know, I want you to know that I'm here to be an asset. So it's all about that initial approach.
So team-based and collaborative versus individual.
Right. And let me help you. Oh. And I'm looking for you to help me. And together we can.
Okay. So instead of the normal, the superior helping the person below them,
or dictating to.
You're suggesting that the person below them, the person who is the employee, needs to reach out to the executive to say, let me help you.
Yeah, because think about
that's
this.
That's a reverse thought.
And I don't know how many of our listeners have ever been in a position where they've changed roles and they come in at sort of a leadership level position, but they're new to the company. They might even be new to the industry. They're certainly new to all these faces that are looking at them. And it's scary as hell. You know, you have enough on your plate trying to prove that the person that hired you made the right choice.
Right.
To have to turn around and try to prove yourself to your staff can be terrifying. So imagine the power of a staff member coming to the new leader and saying, I have the best interest of the organization at heart, just like I'm sure you do. And I'm really excited to work with you. I'm excited to learn learn from you, and I'd like to help you in any way you think I can do that. And think about the influence you would have with that supervisor. So we do leadership training a lot, and we talk about how you supervise your staff, but how you supervise your boss, and this idea of influence. So it's not relegated to your place on the org chart. This ownership, it's an idea, it's a way of life, it's a communication style, and everybody can do it regardless of title.
So it becomes wide versus narrow, team-based versus individual, and let me help you and let me learn from you, as opposed to the reverse.
Right.
Lessons from Jodi.
Jodi 101.
If you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it pure reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.